welcome everyone. We're here with another episode of the Coffee Bar podcast. And as a reminder, this is the podcast where we provide you with the 20% of knowledge that drives 80% of your outcomes in life. And we'll use the Wheel of Life as a foundation to cover different topics of life. And today we're here to learn more about the purpose and mission part that affects all of our lives. And we're very honored to be here with Celine, Collette. Is that how you say your name? Is that correct?
That's perfect. French accent, 100%.
Good enough. Yeah, so welcome, Celine.
Perfect.
Thank you so much for joining us.
No, thanks for having me. Super happy to be here.
Great. And for those of you who don't know Celine, let me introduce her really briefly. Celine holds an advanced master's in strategy and management of international business. And she spent a decade in tech, actually, at Amazon and Google. And she was holding global roles in sales and partnerships and business developments across Asia, North America, and Europe. But then there was a big change, which I personally find very interesting. Celine transitioned from a corporate career to becoming a full-time beach volleyball athlete in 2023. She's now based in Barcelona, and she combines sports with entrepreneurial ventures. For example, her TEDx speech, and also like different kinds of professional coaching. And her philosophy is she advocates for creating multiple fulfilling lives by embracing risks, learning from failure, and continually stepping out of comfort zones. So Celine, again, thank you so much for joining us.
Amazing. You've done a great job.
Yeah, we did our homework.
Yeah, nice. Perfect.
Yeah, also from my side, Celine, thanks so much for joining us today for another Coffee Bar episode. We're really glad to have you here with us today to talk about, mission topics and how to, pivot throughout your life journey. Before we get going, I would like to start off with a simple question. So how did your coffee consumption change when transitioning from corporate to being a professional athlete?
You're going to be so disappointed by my answer because I don't drink coffee.
2 out of 4, Basil.
Exactly. So, no, it's actually it's quite funny because I always thought that I will start drinking coffee when I will start studying, because before studying, I didn't drink coffee. And then I remember my mom telling me, oh, for sure, when you will start studying, you will need some coffee. And I never studied. And so, yeah, even when I was working, but my caffeine boost comes from Coca-Cola, which is not better. Which is probably worst. I always joke I'm trying to reduce my consumption. Already sounds like a drug addict, but yeah, I drink a lot of Coke Zero. It's always a joke among my friends. But now that I play more sports, I'm really trying to reduce it. But I think it's my way of getting a little bit of caffeine. I remember even when I worked, early in the afternoon after lunch, when you start having this this moment where you want to close your eyes, that would be my go-to drink. So I have to admit, but no coffee for me.
Good to know. We learn a lot too. When we started, we assumed that most of our guests will be heavy coffee drinkers, but it turns out so far 2 out of 4 don't drink coffee. So yeah, that's interesting to see. To be honest, my coffee consumption definitely increased over the last few months, because we can dive into it a little bit later, but I did actually the opposite way than you, because I pursued a professional soccer career previously and transitioned to corporate life. And
this is much more normal. You have the normal path.
And I didn't drink coffee before. Actually, I hated it. And now it's like, I was basically peer pressured in the beginning, right? But now it's like part of my day, and yeah, here I am drinking coffee.
I agree. Especially in the corporate world, it's also a way to have like a break from your day and like talk with people. So it's a nice break.
So you spent your breaks with Coca-Cola and daily coffee, or?
So the good thing in tech, in those big tech companies, they have those fridge with like all the option, and they have like cucumber water and like all those fancy drinks.
The fancy stuff, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I was never in trouble I would always go to the break and I would just drink something else. But yeah. But for meetings as well, for example, with meetings with clients, for example, like they always ask you to have a coffee. Like if you want coffee I would always, my only hot drink that I would get is hot chocolate, but then it sounds very junior, like you sound like a kid. So it's also not an option. I don't drink tea, I don't drink coffee. I spent 8 years in Asia, so they drink a lot of tea or hot water. And I was always like, no, just water, regular water. So I think I'm boring drink-wise. Hopefully I can give you more insight with something else.
So
For sure.
Coffee was not what drew you to the corporate life, right? So then what do you think?
No,
what was it?
It was not free coffee.
What was it if not the coffee?
If not the coffee, kind of a joke. My first day at Amazon, I remember that they had, it was a small office. I studied Amazon in Singapore, so it was not in a big office like in the US or Europe, but they had a ping pong table. And for me, it was like amazing to have a ping pong table in your office. Like I had never seen this before. And most people that were hired at Amazon were coming from Microsoft or like other tech companies. So it was so normal. But I remember my first day, I was so happy. Like I was like, wow, every day I can play ping pong during my breaks. So I don't know. It was just for me, it was something that I remember from studying in a tech company. Like it's so normal once you work there. Yeah, like we have like a board game cafe and we have like this ping pong table. But when I first started, no, it was not normal. No, but to answer to your question, what brought me to the corporate life? Like, I don't know, it was like after studying, I thought that's the thing to do. I always did sports on the side. We can talk about it later. Like it was always my passion, and I was always doing it more to meet new people. But yeah, I never even thought there's something else possible. And I studied in France with 1 year in the US. And then I went 1 year in Singapore as well. So the one thing I knew from the beginning is I loved international exposure and I wanted to have an international career. That was like the one thing I knew. So I studied in Singapore my last year and then started working in Singapore and stayed there for 8 years. I changed jobs and we can go more in details. But yeah, I don't know. I've always loved the international environment. Like I feel like really different. You can bring ideas with other people from so many different countries and background. And yeah, you represent like even your country. I don't know. I just find it super cool. And you meet people from all over the world. So yeah, I knew this was my path.
That's awesome. I mean, super relatable for us because Basil and I, we both also left our home country to study abroad for that international exposure and escaping that comfort zone, as you also call it in your bio, I think. So we can totally relate to that. So what I'm curious about, like on your journey into that corporate role for those big tech companies, did you have any specific mentors on the way that had a long-lasting impact on you?
Good question. At the very, very beginning, no, I don't think so. Like I think I got in. Tech was not my. I did a lot of internships. I think while I was studying, that's always one of my kind of not recommendation, but I think it just brings you exposure to a lot of different jobs and a lot of different environments, and you get to know what you like and even better what you don't like. And I had done a few internships in different industries. I had a 1.5 year experience in an insurance company. It was not an internship. It was called VIE. It's a kind of a mini expat contract for people that are from Europe. So you can work for your country. Like let's say for me, I could work for a French company while I was in Singapore. So it was a good like first contract. Anyways, I just felt like the industry was not the industry where I wanted to spend my time. And tech was super appealing for me, more for the people. I felt like it was a lot of young people, very international again. the companies are international themselves. Like if you work for one of those companies and you want to go to work in Switzerland or to the US, like it's not easy, but it's possible and they're kind of everywhere. So yeah, it was a mix of like the right people and the right company giving me the lifestyle that I wanted. I felt like a lot of my decisions were made of, it's like a balance between your personal life and the company as well. But I thought those companies could give me a good balance between the two, like keeping the international exposure, traveling and meeting people that are in the same mindset. Because once I studied, I met so many people that were traveling all the time, speaking 20 different languages, have parents from like different countries. Like the people that I met, I think is the one thing that inspired me the most once I was inside. I had good managers once I was in tech, but I wouldn't say that I had someone from outside all those companies that were helping me navigate. To be very honest, I was taking the opportunities. I think I'm a hard worker. I try to do a lot of internships. I try to do a lot of networking. I think networking is I was not even doing it thinking about networking. I think I'm social and I just meet people and I love, but I think that's what helped me navigate all the different changes when I changed from internships to like jobs and to be involved in something that you're really passionate. For me, it was sports. I always met like a lot of people and you meet them through a different settings as well. Like it's not only through work, you meet them, helping their kids or I just think that overall networking was something I was good at and that helped me navigate, but not one person.
Yeah. Speaking of networking, our dean back in college used to say your network is your net worth. And I totally agree with him. And it seems like you did a great organic job in having getting exposure in your network and, building relationships in there. So that's awesome. 100%. You spoke about volleyball was always or sports was always on the side. So how did you manage that, like during your corporate career, having like both topics on the plate, right? How did you do that?
Yeah, I think it was always something I did on the side. And as I moved countries as well, the first thing I would do was trying to find like a volleyball club so I could meet new people and like have people outside of my work as well. I think it's good to just, as you move, like I was not staying in my hometown where I already know my friends. So it was good to always meet new people. And I think it's when I moved to the US, so toward the last few years of my career for now, I think I was exposed to a much higher intensity in the trainings. Like before, I would already train like quite a lot when I was in Singapore, but maybe 2-3 times a week and play in the weekends, but not a lot of tournaments, for example. When I moved to the US, like the intensity of the training and also the level in general in the US for sports is just like, there's nowhere else in the world, I think, that have this level. So for me, I think it was a big change. And I was also growing in my career. I was managing people at work. I was given more responsibility. So I think that's also when I started to realize like I could keep doing both a little bit longer, but at which cost? Like, I think I was so involved on both sides. And I realized a lot of people were either super involved in their job. Like I was already around 30. So that's when most likely their passion has, like, you've already done it more. So people at work would really focus on work most of the time. And then in my training, then I would be with girls that maybe don't have the same type of job. Some had, not everyone, but like could maybe go for the physio after the training or have a little bit of rest. So I was kind of in this situation where I thought, again, I could keep doing it this way. But again, which cost? I was training in New York. I was training at 6 a.m. in the morning, just to give you an idea. So I would be in the train at 4:45 to go to Brooklyn, because the beach volleyball, I also started playing beach volleyball a few years before that. So it was, I had to go to Brooklyn. So it was like a 45-minute metro ride. So going
They only have sand in Brooklyn, or what?
So sand, they don't have a lot. There's like in Central Park, they have two, but it's very complicated to get a spot. So and Brooklyn was the easiest and the coach was there. And they have one court that's indoor because during the winter, it's hard to play outside. But overall, yeah, I would wake up super early and we would play 6 to 8. And then I would go back to Manhattan and then take my shower at the office. Thank God they had a shower in the office. Like, I think it's the best idea for people who love sports. And then I would start my day. But by 11 a.m., I was already like super tired. Or yeah, when people it was their first coffee break at 11 a.m. And again, yeah, I think this, and I was new in New York City as well. So I had to be a little bit social. So, but if you wake up at 5 a.m. and say you have to also go to bed quite early, if you go to bed at midnight every day and you do sports and work, it's just a little bit complicated. So I think it worked until it was a little bit too much and I felt like I had to make a choice. And for me, it was always something in me that thought, why wouldn't I try? And sports has an end. As you know, like you were both, I think, athletes when you were younger. Like as you get older, it gets more complicated. And for sure, I'm not going to be able to do like high intensity sport for another 10 or 20 years. So that's why I kind of prioritized doing more of the sports now, and then I can always go back to a job or a career later. That was the thought behind this crazy move.
And before we start talking more about like your reasons or like why you changed, can you tell us a little bit more about like even how you would say, like if you have any advice, how you get into like, you know, cool companies like Amazon or Google? I know we talked a little bit about networking earlier and doing like internships. Is there anything else that you feel like helped you to like land those cool jobs at the first place or in the first place?
Yeah, I think definitely I think those big companies, if we're talking about those big tech company, I think they put like what you do outside of your study is very important as well. So like you can, like for me it was sport, but maybe for someone it's music or being involved in different projects. I think especially if you apply just after your study, or which I didn't. I worked for 3 years before I got into those big companies. But yeah, I think anything you do outside is something that they would, like it would be important for them. So one thing is just keep doing what you love and do it well. And like, don't try to, if I want to get into Google, I need to know everything about data, blah, blah, blah. But if you're not passionate about this, like you're not going to be super good. So you could be passionate about tennis or about cooking and you can make your interview really cool. Podcasting, yeah, and like tell them you met like 100 entrepreneurs that were super interesting. So I think keep doing what you love because that's the best way you're going to be someone interesting for them. And then for the interviews specifically, because I've myself got into 2 of those big companies, I think the advice would be to prepare them really well. Like don't let any chance to those interviews. And I actually love to compare this with even a game, like a sports game, because it's relatable. Like you wouldn't go to a football, I think you guys played football, or like a game without any preparation and just hoping by any luck you will succeed. Like for sure it's going to be a failure. So I think if getting this interview for those big companies, once you've identified that it's something you want to do, is already super hard. But once you get those interviews, I would say like drop everything and like really prepare yourself. Like it's usually not something that will come super often in your life. And again, if it's something that you want to be doing, it could also be for a cool startup. Like doesn't have to be those big companies, but my experiences with those big companies, I would say like really prepare them really well. Have a few experiences that you want to talk about and then drive the interviews yourself. Like I've been on the other side of the interviews as well. So someone who is passionate, who can describe very easily also what they're doing, like understanding the other person on the other side is not a specialist in what you're doing. But for that, you need to prepare a lot. Like I would say prepare, train. It's my mentality for sport as well. But once you get the interview for a job that you really want to do, I would say like work hard, like train. And if someone else is better than you, same as the game, if you're not going to win if you prepare like super well, it's not for sure, but you're putting yourself in the best situation. So yeah, I would say that. Like keep your working on your passion, and once you get the interview, like work really hard to prepare.
I actually had a very similar experience when applying to Bain and Company, which is like one of, like a management consulting firm, and also like hard to get to get a job. So I also I remember I was going to college at the time, and I was like, okay, I'm not going to go to class for like 3 weeks. I still went to practice because otherwise you get in trouble, with your scholarship and everything. But I didn't go to class. Everyone was like, wow, you're crazy. But I was like, no, this is my priority for now. So very similar. So then let's say you get into, you do that, you get into this company, which could also be like Google or Amazon, like in your case, and you work with people who obviously they're very smart and they prioritize getting into this job and they enjoy this job, and this job comes with a lot of financial benefits. Then what makes you say I'm done with this. I want to leave. I want to go do something that's very uncertain and become a professional athlete?
Yeah, I think it's really something that was deep inside me. I really wanted to try. And I always thought I just didn't want to have regrets, to be honest. I think I just stopped after 10 years working so much, and I just stopped and be like, will I regret if I don't really try to put all my energy into this one thing? And the answer was yes. I think that's as simple as this. I spent, of course, month and month thinking about, should I do it? Should I not do it? As you said, the financial is it's super hard because you're already in a good financial situation. And right now I earn zero. My sport doesn't even pay. It's not a sport that I can hope to earn any money. I have to find my sponsor myself. It's not visible. It's very, very complicated. And there's ups and downs, of course. It's not that I'm winning everything and everything is easy. So for me, it was really thinking, if I look back, will I regret? And I think at that point of time, I thought, actually, yes, I still have a few years in front of me to try to push as hard as I can my body. And then I can always come back and it's not even that I didn't like my job or anything. I liked everything. It's, of course, ups and downs as well. I'm not saying it was perfect, but I didn't leave because I hated it or it was a burnout. I need, some people have that, but for me it was more, I'm a girl. I'm already 32. I think at this point when I resign, if I want to have a family, if I want to, do other things, it's now or never. The sport is now or never. The door is going to close. And I think it was first time of my life that an option will close. I'm someone that opens options all the time. If I apply to company, I would have 3 or 4 that I'm applying. If I'm doing a project, everything. But this was the first time that I thought an option is going to close, and will I regret if I don't do it? And I think it was really something personal and inside me. And of course, I thought about it a lot. I can give you I think I tried to convince myself deep inside that I was not taking such a huge risk, because I think professional sport is very similar to high level corporate jobs. So I see a lot of comparison, but that was the behind of all of this is, will I regret? And I think it's a good question to ask ourselves if there's something that we really truly feel connected to, or we really want to be doing. And maybe it's entrepreneurship, maybe it's opening a bar, maybe, I don't know, traveling 1 year with your kids. It could be anything, but I think most of the time we don't do it because we're scared. And I did not want to look back and regret. So I just went into it.
That's super inspiring. And you got to watch me now, because I'm going to open up that bar in on Hawaii.
Perfect. I'll come visit.
just kidding. I mean, I think that there was an internal debate you had, right? Over months, should I do it or shouldn't I do it? How did you involve your network or your close people into that decision-making process?
Yeah, it's a good question. I actually took a coach, it was not a mental coach. Now that I play sports, I have a mental coach, but at this point it was a life coach. And I worked with her on, for example, estimating how much it will cost me to do this project. We went really deep into the practical things, because I think we are always super scared because we don't stop and write down everything that, we need to have. I started to list, for example, I had to reach out to my federation to make sure that I could play and represent my country, because in my head, I was doing all of this to have an international exposure. And for example, if the federation had said no, I maybe I wouldn't have studied. So I just took my dream, I cut it into many different pieces, and I started like at the very bottom, like step by step, and I asked for help. So I think it's always good to ask for help, because she helped me to think about a lot of things. At that point, I remember I was saying that I would take a 1-year sabbatical. That was my thing, because I think I was scared. Again, I was not taking a sabbatical in the term that Google will pay for, like, keep my job. This was not an option. I checked, but it was, I think Google gives you like a month, maximum 3 months. And I knew I could not become a professional player in 3 months. There was no way. And even in 1 year, if I'm honest with you now, like, I think it was crazy to think in 1 year I can, but I think it was just, I was so scared that it was reassuring me. I just do this for a year, and in 1 year I go back to my job and everything will be fine. So yeah, that helped. So I did this live coaching. I think getting help is just always good. And I have to say, like, for example, I spoke to a few of the director at Google that I was close to. So they were much more senior than me. And I asked them, am I crazy? Like, am I shooting myself in the foot if I'm doing this? Like, and none of them at least have told me like, no, don't do it. It's crazy. I think most of them were super encouraging and telling me it's such a good experience. And I think it's all about how you brand yourself and the story you will tell. And if you think about it, I could have stayed another 2-3 years at Google, and maybe now I will have like another job title on my LinkedIn, but now I have a cool story to tell. I learned so many different things, the mental aspects of sport. I'm like a full entrepreneur trying to find some money here and there, convince people to follow me on my adventure, even though there's no money to make. Like, it's such a great adventure that I think whatever happens, it won't fit any companies in the future, but the few companies that will like people who take risk and who really go for what they want to do, I think they might enjoy my story. So we'll see. But I think it helped me again to speak to people that were in the business and that were in my job, because of course your parents might be like, okay, go do it or don't do it, but they know nothing about what you do and your career and like where you are. So I found a few people that I could talk to, because of course it's not easy to say, hey, I have this idea of leaving my job and doing this. But the few that I spoke to and I really trust them, they all told me like, yeah, go for it, do it. Like, yeah, I don't know. I think they were getting older as well. And a lot of people think about those things. Like, I really want to do this and why I'm not doing it. And so they were very, very supportive.
So when you post like on LinkedIn, I saw your LinkedIn post, which says like, what would your job be if like every, position paid the same? You really went for that and took it to your heart.
Exactly. I love this question. I think I read it somewhere. Like, it's my favorite icebreaker if I'm in a, I don't know anyone in the room and like I'm just meeting new people. I always think it's good because people start to open up about, and they start having like bubble in their eyes and be like, oh, I love jewelry and I have this brand, or I like to buy those things. And like, because in the end, when you meet new people, it's always, oh, where are you from? And what do you do? Like, I hate that we define ourselves with, like, it's normal to ask, but yeah, I think it's a good question to see what people, like, who they really are and what they're interested. And I had a friend who told me once, for him in networking events, he goes around and asks, who are you? Instead of what do you do? And people get very like, whoa. But he says like, it's a good question to ask. And people are always used to be like, oh, I'm a like financial banker and this, da, 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 da. And we go again about telling our story, but who are you? Like, yeah, I'm a son. I'm a sister. I have 2 sisters. Like, you start opening up about more who you are versus what we do, because this can change over time.
So then, okay, so sorry, getting a little bit deeper, then why do you think, if everyone has a really good answer to like, what would your job be if like money was an issue, why do so few people go for it and like follow their passion? What do you think?
I think it's fears. Yes, because everyone has always a pushback. Yeah, but I don't have the money. Yeah, but I have kids. Yeah, but I have, there's always something, or it's that makes it think your thing is not possible. But yeah, I think if it's something that's super close to your heart, like as I kind of did, not saying I'm an example, but like cutting it or like trying to see, okay, but if I start from zero, of course, I'm not going to become like a president tomorrow if that's something they want to do, but like where to start and like cutting it, I think really helps for the fears, because a lot of the fears, like for example, for me, obviously I had 3 main fears. I wrote them down. One was the money, for sure. Number one, like I'm not going to earn any money. How I'm going to do this? So for example, the exercise where I really wrote down how much is a coach for a year, how much is a mental coach, how much, like I was having it just helps to put your fears on paper. So you come to an amount and you're like, you know what? I have this on my account now. Should I invest it in something else? Maybe, but I could also invest it in myself. So, but the money one, I think for me was number one. I mean, one of the fears, what people are going to say. Like I'm very not confident. Like, I don't know. It's always like people are going to talk about you and like, it's kind of, yeah, am I doing something that crazy? And the last one was, am I even able to do it? Like, it's not because you decide to be as you guys know, like an athlete or a sport athlete that you can actually perform and be really good at it. It's something that I had been doing for a while. Like I was playing for 20 years, more or less, when I really resigned. So it's also not something I started 2 months before. Which is possible, but I always advise people if they're scared to start like small and maybe on the side of your job. And if it's like the jewelry thing or maybe the bar thing that you said, like maybe start working in a bar during the weekend, like don't own your bar, but see if you like it, because maybe in the end, working during the weekend and at night and like washing all the dishes, like it's not something that you will love that much, because we think that it's going to be perfect all the time. But starting to be exposed a little bit more is important. So yeah, overall, I think it's fear, and there's always good excuses, like not saying, I think that we always have pushback. I think it's about looking into them, like giving yourself the right to look into the pushback, like in the fears, and sit down and really work on them. Like I think most of the time we give up right away saying, oh, I can't because I don't have this, or I can't because, so not easy, but I think it's the key if we really want to do something is to look into those fears.
Awesome. So you mentioned, in my example, I should go to a bar and try it, right? And then maybe I see things that are different or than expected, right? What was that for you? What was different than expected for you once you transitioned to being a professional?
Yeah, I think... So I was already doing some of the training. I think the intensity for sure, because now I didn't have my meetings that I had to run to. So I could do more trainings during the day. I think for me, the main learning, I really thought that I was going into a physical experience. Like it was really about my body and train on the sand, because I was going to compete against girls that have started beach volleyball when they were 5. Like, to me, I had such a big lack of technique and physicality that I thought it's my number one thing. Like I have to train. And I did this like as much as I could. And with the first international tournaments coming, I realized I could train the day before like the best as I could. Of course, I was not already like the best player, but I could play really well. Come the game, and the pressure, handling the pressure was actually something a little bit different than I thought, more because I was putting a lot of pressure on myself. So we discussed a lot about my decision and living my life, my comfortable situation. And I think the moment I started playing those tournaments, once it was my main, not job, but my main activity, the level of pressure I was putting on myself was insane, because I was like, I left my job, I left my US visa, I left the comfortable situation I had, blah, 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 and I'm not able to win this game. Like, how is this possible? And I'm training like every day and doing everything I think is right. I'm eating healthy and like all of that. And I felt like I was playing with like 100 kilo on my shoulders, thinking like I have to win this game. Like it's not possible. But of course, as you guys know, sport is not at all like this. It's not because you're doing all the right thing that you're going to win. So just all the story to say, like, I discovered how it would be a mental battle for me more than a physical battle. like when I first started again, I thought like I need to go and find the best coaches to train my body. And I realized how I had to work a lot on my brain, on my confidence. It's almost like I feel now more and more that this adventure is also like a self-development course, like a crash course into all of this. Because in sport, you can't hide. Like you're on the court. My sport, I cannot even leave the court. We can't change players. If I'm not good, I'm staying on the court, whatever happens. So it's actually a really mental game. You play with the wind, everything is changing all the time. So yeah, I'm learning a lot about I don't know if it's mental health, but I never thought this experience will be so much about preparing my brain.
And on that,
I think it's my my main learning.
And on that journey, do you feel like there's anything from the corporate world, from like your life before that maybe other players didn't have that you can leverage, or do you feel like you have to like unlearn literally like everything?
Yeah, I don't know if it helped me, but in a way, like I would always look into my opponent, like they have everything better than me. Like they are younger, they jump higher, they have more experience in volleyball. But yeah, I think then I started to look into, okay, what do I have? Because it's not like I haven't done anything for the last 12 years sitting on my butt somewhere. Like I was good at networking, for example, like trying to find sponsors and like prospecting and and this is a big part of a sport that doesn't pay, for example. So, okay, this I was good at, so I was going to try to use it for getting help on my sport. A little bit the data mind that you get by working in a corporate job. For example, I knew ideally I would be the best at everything, but what I did is I'm spending a lot of time watching games and looking at the shots that are working well for players that are my height. Like I just take people that are my height, because if I look at volleyball players are usually really tall, and I'm not. So if I look at someone who's 2 meter high, we don't have the same capability. So I think looking into the data, like people that are my height that play the game and like see which shot they're doing and which one work. And I identified like 2 or 3. And then I worked in training really hard on those like 3. I'm not trying to have them all. Again, ideally, if I had 12, 15 years in front of me, I would do this. But yeah, I think it's kind of taking a project planning, thinking like, okay, I don't have unlimited years. It's priority, and I'm trying to look what works and trying to duplicate it with me. I'm not reinventing the wheel.
Perfect. So maybe now shifting gears a little bit one more time. So now, as a professional athlete, walk us through a day of yours. Now in Rio de Janeiro, what are you doing on a daily basis?
So yeah, here I really love it because my beach volleyball is big in Brazil. It's big in US, big in Brazil, but for example in Europe it's really not super big depending on the country. Italy has some good level, but it's important just to explain, because here when I come here, I try to come every winter for 2-3 months, and it's so nice because I get the training, I get the physical coach, I get the physio, like they all talk to each other. It's a very professional setting because you mentioned now that I'm a professional athlete. Sometimes I even struggle myself to define myself as professional because I don't really earn money, but I'm spending most of my day doing it. So it's a weird situation. But anyway, yeah, I go 1 hour to the gym almost every day, like 6 days out of 7. I do 1.5 hour beach volleyball training in the sand. And then we try to have some physical in the sand as well, where you basically have to run in the sand, because why do they choose a sport that's in the sand? I don't know, but it's hard, I promise. And then I try to go to the physio once a week, at least. Like I had a back injury the last few months, so I'm trying to get rid of this one. I had a lot of knee injuries. I didn't talk about this earlier, but I had twice my ACL, so the cruciate ligaments, when I was younger. So I had a doctor who told me you will never play volleyball again. So if they would see me now, it would be funny. But yeah, I had twice ACL. And then last year I dislocated my knee, the same one. It's always the same one. So I know I have a very weak left side, or left knee. So I'm trying to work a lot on it. Like for me, it's almost the most important, because without this, of course, you can't do anything. So I know versus a younger player, for me, the physical part might even be more important than the volleyball. And then I always leave, like, I will at least have 3-4 hours per day where I work on different projects. Right now, I'm trying to do conferences for companies, actually explaining the similarities and the differences, but mostly the similarities I see between the corporate world and the high level sports. So yeah, I'm like reaching out to companies and like scheduling conferences. I find it's a great way it's my way of sponsorship, I feel, because I think asking money to a company just to have the brand on your jersey, for example, doesn't work in my sport because, again, it's not visible. So I found this way around where I'm like, how can I help the company if you guys help me in my adventure? And I think the format of conferences is good. I worked in the US, so I know that mostly in the US, it's something that companies are used to do, like having people to share their journey and everything. In Europe, it's a little bit less, but it's growing as well. So yeah, I always have 3-4 hours per day also working because I need to find ways to make money. So I will reach out to sponsors or do some networking on LinkedIn and send some messages as well.
And so, you're all by yourself, like doing that stuff, like planning it, like reaching out, as you mentioned, like you have no management behind that supports you. Okay.
Yeah, no, there's a federation for beach volley, but depending on the country, like basically they have in my country, they support 2 national teams. And then the rest, we are in entrepreneurship mode. Like basically we are in charge of finding everything. They register us for the tournaments, but then we are in charge of all the logistics. My sport is also quite hard because it's 2 players, so I'm not playing alone. So finding a partner is also very difficult. As I explained, like there's a lot of barriers to entry, and so finding the right person is difficult. So I've been playing with different players depending if the person is available, and so you have to work a lot on yourself, and then ideally find a partner that wants to do the whole thing with you. But that's something I've learned. I thought I would have one partner for the few years, but it's very difficult. Like you have to be aligned on many different things, like the money and like traveling all around the world has to be someone who can work remote because otherwise it's complicated. So, and be a blocker because I'm a defender. So we do different things on the court. Be French because I play for my country, and so I cannot play with someone who's not from my country. So it's very, very complicated.
That's why you call.
Sounds like
that's why you call yourself an athlete-preneur.
Yes, I kind of invented the word. I don't know, maybe it for sure existed already, but yeah, it's hard to. It's impossible to just focus on the sport. Like. It's hard to describe. I think a lot of people around me think like I'm in a program where I have everything is organized for me, but not at all. Like every time I go, even I describe my day in Brazil, I had to come here, find the coach, find the physical coach, find you create it yourself. Again, I think if you're under a federation, it could be different. But honestly, the more I speak to people that play small sports, it's very like this. Like it's not organized. So. Yeah, you get to that. Again, that's why I really think I always wanted to be an entrepreneur, and I thought I will do it after. In my head, I was going to be an athlete first and then an entrepreneur. And the more I'm doing it, I'm like, I'm actually doing it now.
You're already an entrepreneur. Yeah,
maybe even harder because you need to sell yourself, which I find very difficult. Like if you sell a product, a service, I've always done that, and it's not easy, but it's a little bit easier than selling yourself. Yeah. But it can only be good learning.
Yeah, and you also said that, like one of the things you do is like you reach out to companies, you talk to them as like maybe a motivational speaker or someone that inspires people there to also like follow their mission. And I saw you were also a TEDx speaker. So what are like the main maybe 2 or 3 points when they say, okay, Celine, we want to hire you as a speaker that you try to like bring across and share with them?
Yeah, I think it's really about the similarities that I see in like to be like, for me, performing on the court and like performing in your job, there's a lot of things, like a lot of similarities. And I give example from both sides. So I spoke about the mental part. I really explain what my mental coach is teaching me and stuff that I wish I had known when I was
Can you give an example?
That I can
you give one example that he taught you or they?
Yeah, I mean, yes, there's a lot, like visualization, I think, is something I would never do before in my job, and that I'm doing much more now for my tournaments. And I think it can be a really good tool if you're exposed. So I know you have to present to a lot of people in your job, and that's something you don't like. And there's a lot of things you can prepare. I think what I learned the most about all of this is you can prepare. And also in terms of the goals, I think something I learned a lot through sport is to have goals that are not just result oriented. Like, I think in our job, we tend to have, okay, we need to do this by the end of the quarter, like this amount. I don't know, we have to do 2 million by the end of the quarter, blah, blah. But in sport, it's the same. In the end, you could be like, by the end of this 3 months, I need to win one tournament. But what I've learned is to also have like like objectives that are not only linked to the result. Like, out of 3 objectives, 1 is result, but 2 is not result oriented. So whether I win or lose, I can still check so it could be like the routine I do before my game, or it could be, just something I fully control. And I think in corporate, for example, we tend to maybe only have goals, like the main goal is this, but you can also have goals on activities for your sales team, for example, like if they just call 10 times or they spoke to 10 clients, like stuff that they are in control. I went deep in this one, but just having objective that you are in control, because then when you lose or when you don't hit the target, or the whole world doesn't collapse, like you've also achieved things along the way, and you can keep going. So yeah, I think I try to share my learnings. I am not there to give them to tell them what to do or anything, but it's more, I think it's interesting. For a long time, I thought my weakness was to be on both sides, like to try to do sports, but then I was comparing myself to people that are fully dedicated to sport, and they would always be better than me. And then I would be on the work side, I would compare myself to people that fully dedicated themselves to their job, and then I would also feel like I'm not as good. And I think I've learned to embrace the fact that my strength is I'm doing both, and I've done both, and I can see I can have a lot of example from both worlds where it's not that easy to find. Some people have the more the athlete side, but less of the having big responsibility in like big groups. But you guys are a good example to have that as well. But it's not that common when you think around you, like people who have both cap. So yeah, I'm trying just to share my learning, and usually it's a really good conversation after. I love talking with people after the conferences, because they always tell me like, oh, this part really resonated with me for this and this reason. And communication is a big one as well. Like I'm playing a sport where we are only 2, we cannot change the player, we don't have a coach. So it's easy to relate as well. As a manager, you're not gonna change teams if something goes wrong. So you have to adapt and be flexible. So yeah, there's a lot of cool things to talk about during those conferences.
Amazing. Really amazing. I love that. And especially that process-oriented goal setting over the outcome-oriented goal setting. I really like that. And that's what our coach used to do while we were in college. He really used to set process goals over product goals. Obviously, at the end of the day, it's about winning, right? But I think he did a great job in forming the culture where process was more important than product, because eventually the product will follow if you have the process under control. So that's really valuable. And I think we can really, or like companies can really take some learnings out of that. So that's great. One question from me would also be like, now you shifted careers, right? You're in your professional athlete world. what does the future hold for you for the next maybe 5 to 10 years? What's next for Celine?
Yeah, it's a good question. I know with sport that it was not like some people shift career and then they stay in their career. For me, I knew it was not a forever thing. As I said in the beginning, one of the main reasons I studied was it's now and never, and I knew the door will close. So it's not like I know I have like 10 years in front of me. I have no idea, and I don't want to put an end to this. Like, I want to see how I feel and how far I can push my body, and maybe in 3 months I will have another ACL injury and I'll tell you, okay, this is over. I cannot recover from a third one. Hopefully not, but I just want to, like, I don't have an end to this, but I know there is an end, basically is what I want to say. But I really want to, I'm someone who always plan so much for the future and have options and everything. So I definitely have some ideas. Like, I will go back to working, probably, I don't know in which, maybe it will be my own company or maybe it will be for a much smaller, like a startup. I don't think I don't want to be like a coach. Like, I don't want to stay in this area. I know I really like business. I love, so maybe it will be more for tech. Like, there's a lot of companies now that are using data for your well-being and for wellness. It could be something, but at this point, I just want to do what I wanted to do when I first stopped, which is hard because my brain always want to have other options, to dedicate myself to this and put as much effort as I can and really see where it brings me, which is a difficult exercise for me. I feel like I've always been like thinking everything I do could be for this later. Even in my decision-making process, I told you, like, I thought, okay, this can help, like, this can help me for another job later. Like, it's hard. But yeah, I think for now is like pushing my limit and see where I can go. Of course, I have some objectives, like to try to get to a certain level. But yeah, I just want to, for now, I want to keep going and see how far I can go and maybe inspire some people along the way. Not about beach volleyball. It's not my story. I feel is not so much about beach volleyball, but pursuing something that you always wanted to do and like give yourself a chance. I think we are usually the barrier to what we want to do. And if I can inspire 1 or 2 person, like, to not be the barrier, because once you pass this barrier, there's a lot of other barriers that are going to be there. But I think we stop ourselves from doing cool things. So we just have one life and it's our life. So people can say whatever they want, but at least I would have tried myself and I would know myself what it takes to be an athlete. And then I don't know, I will have my own experience.
So after being, at Google and Amazon and being a professional volleyball player, how do you define success?
That is a good question.
In life, I guess.
Yeah. It's a good question, and I guess super personal to everyone. Success. I think. I also think it changes along. Like, I would have probably given you such a different answer to this question 10 years ago. But now I think more on the balance and well-being side. Like, before I was just like work and climbing in my companies and everything. Now the at which cost is getting more important. But maybe I'm just getting older, which sucks. But I think finding a balance and loving what you do. Yeah, I think just loving as much as possible what you do. And what sports teaches me a lot is being in the moment. I don't know if you guys had the same, but before, again, my brain is like 300 miles an hour and like always thinking about different things. But when I play, I think it's my kind of meditation. I cannot think about, I shouldn't have said that during the podcast, or I should build this company because this and that, which is always what's happening in my brain. But during this moment, I have to really concentrate. Otherwise, I'm getting the ball in my face very quickly. So I think overall, it's teaching me to be a little bit more in the moment and enjoying the small things. Yes, I earn less money than before. I don't have the same future maybe that I could have had. But yeah, enjoying the small moment and being grateful for everything you do when you're healthy and breathing. And so, yeah, maybe I changed a lot from the Celine you would have met 10 years ago, like competing against everyone in the corporate world. But I think that's really truly what sports brought me. And maybe that's the journey I'm on, is like, how do I live the moment instead of always wanting more? There will always be more.
And I know, I'm sorry, Dennis. I know we want to do also like talk about what we took away. But before that, Celine, I have to ask you, like, you know, as we like look for speakers, obviously like we look through LinkedIn and all these platforms. But to me, your LinkedIn really stood out. I know that like I've looked at like a lot of profiles, and I feel like you're probably top 5% of profiles in terms of LinkedIn. So do you have like, I really think so.
That's good.
I really think so. I don't know if you have like maybe one piece of advice how you feel like you were like able to make your LinkedIn so professional and like, I don't know, well work.
Yeah, before when I worked in I would never post anything on LinkedIn when I was working. I think it's a bit of a scary social media because, of course, your future employers are there and it's very professional. But one of the things that I had to do going into this Athlete-Preneur adventure was creating content, because if you're not visible, no one is ever going to want to work with you. And again, it's not my sport that's super visible, so I had to be more visible. So I definitely looked a little bit more into LinkedIn, into Instagram. Everyone told me about like to go into TikTok and everything. I just feel like I'm a little bit older. But the good thing with LinkedIn is you get the decision makers. They are on LinkedIn. And I think it's a platform that now is getting more and more people are sharing their story more open to what's happening. So yeah, I thought I'm just going to document my learnings, my journey, and see where it goes. I would love to post way more. I have to be better at this that's what I learned with social media in general, is the consistency. And I want to be very honest, I feel like all my posts are about my experience, and more I feel like it could be interesting maybe to share other story that I read. I read a lot, or like maybe it's just, I'm trying to find my voice, let's say in this world, because I feel maybe people will get bored of just my story. But the idea was to be very open and be like, this is what I'm learning. And again, I think I accepted the fact that my story is not going to be for every company out there. And maybe even like, some companies wouldn't want my profile, but the one that I want to work for will probably like my profile. So I kind of try to remove this idea like, if I post about myself, then, because my story is also, I left my company to do something. So it could be taken as, okay, like she's just a crazy person that will just leave their job. But I think if I share the thought process behind, the same way I made sure my parents were not too worried, like I think I can share and it can help people. And I think it's just sharing and being authentic, and of course have like a nice photo, like the basics, have a good description, short description of what you do. And then, I think more people post
definitely
something.
Works. You have an amazing LinkedIn profile, as Basil said, like it really stuck out. And sometimes less is more, right? But in your case, like you really have that authentic voice already, and what we can say is just keep going.
Thank you.
It's awesome. So
Thanks.
I think we could talk for hours.
Maybe we can do another episode.
I think we actually have to explore the option of
in 1 year, where am I?
Part 2, exactly. Or maybe 6 months check in, and then 1 year.
In person would be fun. Doing it in person, I think would be really cool.
Okay.
If we're in the same location.
Okay. With you guys, perfect, because it's going to be fun. It would be a fun location.
For sure. So
it's not Switzerland. I'm kidding. I'm
fine by me. Fine by me.
It can also be like California. You were in California before too, Celine, right?
We have tied to California, so I think that's the common ground, right?
Okay. It's just very expensive, but let's go.
Let's do it. All right. So before we go into our world famous espresso round, we would like to quickly conclude what we heard, what our key takeaways are from this session. So Basil, if you could share your top 3, 5. I mean, I have so many. It's hard to narrow down, but like if you could share your key takeaways from today's talk with Celine.
Yes. So I think my biggest one was, it's process over product. I think that's really important. And I like that you teach it to companies as well. Then also, I really like that you describe, what was interesting to me personally is like when you play football, it's like either you make it or you don't make it. But if you do make it, you will be very financially successful. But it's not like this for every sport. So like, in the case of beach volleyball, you have to also, like even if you make it and you are among the best, you still have to find a way to like pay the bills, which is very interesting. And I think the last one is like when you want to be successful, or like not successful, but when you think about important decisions, you can ask yourself the questions of like, would I regret not doing this later on? I think it's very powerful. How about you, Dennis?
Yeah, you stole that one from me. Definitely always, if a huge decision is on the table, ask yourself, would I regret not doing it? And I think it gives you a good idea of going for it or nah, don't do it. So that's definitely one. The other one is also your network is your net worth, right? I liked how you described it, how you were able to have that organic way of connecting with people. And sometimes I feel like it's underrated, and you put a big emphasis on that it's important that your network is leveraged. And number 3, I would say that focus on yourself, leverage your strength. As you said, like in volleyball, in beach volleyball now, you're using your strength, you're analyzing the data that parallels you were able to draw from your corporate world. So that's definitely something I take away from this session, that, focus on yourself instead of comparing yourself to others. Good. So are you ready for that world famous espresso round of ours where we have 5 questions? Basil would start asking them in a second, but try to be as concise as possible, maybe just one sentence. If it's more, no problem, but be as concise as possible.
What is your favorite book and why?
I would say Champion Minded. I can send you the link. I think it's Alistair McCow. I don't know if I pronounce correctly. I love that he's talking about very precise thing you can work on your mental strength, and it's for sport and life. So I think it relates really well with this episode.
Awesome. Number 2, what is your piece of advice that would you give to your 25-year-old self?
Think less and enjoy more.
Good one. Goes into the next one, Basil, maybe.
Yeah, which is if you had a giant billboard, you have a lot of them in California on the road, which is like, if you had one and you could put one message on it, which is like maximum one sentence, what would it be?
Just do it, or take the risk. Go
Nike.
for it.
Is that Nike?
Just
is
do
that
it.
a Nike?
Yeah, someone.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a sponsorship for Nike request. No, but yeah, that's my mentality. Like, go for it.
Nice. What is one habit that makes your life better?
That you do every day.
I journal. It's actually not new, but I would say when I was working in my corporate job, I was not journaling. Now I journal a lot, and if people are listening and they have the same thing as me, where their brain goes super fast, it's like saving my life. Like putting everything on paper, at least it's there. You can sleep at night.
Perfect.
So journaling.
And the final one is, if there's one person or 1 or 2 people that we should have coffee with, that we should talk to in our next podcast episode, so you would listen to it, who would they be?
This one is hard. Can be anyone.
Anyone.
Maybe the French president, because he's in a lot of trouble right now. So it would be interesting.
Macron.
Yeah, I can make connections. No, but it's interesting. There's so many interesting people around me. My sister, maybe, she's a super cool entrepreneur. Her passion is about leaving the planet in good condition for her kids, like for kids in general. So yeah, she's a big inspiration for me, and you should meet her. She's awesome.
Cool. We make sure to follow up on that. And
between the president or my sister. So let's see.
Maybe we get both
in the same conversation.
And we also have to follow up on that. Where is Celine in 6 months or 1 year? That's really interesting. And hopefully in person, not in Switzerland, we're going to California.
Okay, perfect. Sounds good.
Good.
Thanks
perfect.
for having me. It was super fun. Thank you.
Thank you so much again for joining us today for another Coffee Bar episode. It was super interesting to talk to you. And we really look forward to following your journey on LinkedIn or any other platform you're on. Obviously, we wish you best of luck.
Thank you.
In your future adventures, and all the best. And
for anyone who listen, or like if anyone wants to reach out, because I've had that before, and I always think like it's really cool to receive even just like a feedback. I listened, it was cool, but if they need any help or they want to make a big decision or anything, like I'm always super happy to read messages. So don't be shy.
We'll make sure to link you to that podcast. And guys, you heard Celine, reach out to her and stay tuned for another Coffee Bar episode coming up soon. Thank you so much and
see
you around. Bye-bye.